only job is to be free, free to live inside a tree, free to see the way you see. If it's strange, then let it be. Your only job is to be free, free to laugh, free to sing, free to think. You might be king, or you might fly or swim the sea. You have it all.
Two songs in mind. You guys, it's not the only two songs you do this on. Move On, Travel as Equals. Confrontational songs. Confrontational political songs to a point. A lot of artists stray away from that. Of course, a lot of artists don't, but you guys definitely don't. As opposed to the ones who are like, I can't do that. I'm gonna lose some of my fans. Neither one of you seem like you've ever had a problem with that. You speak your mind online, on Twitter and everything else.
Do you have a lot of political songs, or
not a lot? But it creeps in there here and there, and it's like to me it's somewhat unnatural to write a political song. So when it happens, I kind of go for it, because it's like I feel like it's coming from somewhere, and it's like, okay, cool. I'm not afraid of it, but yeah, it's a I don't know. It's nothing I go for. I don't,
Yeah.
Political songs tend to be boring as hell.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're talking about like, the grammar amendment, let's pass it. Let's end the filibuster.
Well, we all know I'm just a bill. All right. One of the great educational songs.
I mean, I've just written a couple of them.
What a great duet album if you got like a right wing guy and a left wing guy, and they did like a political album at each other.
Right.
Sure.
You're not a right wing guy.
No, I'm not.
I'm not a right wing guy. You don't think I'm a right wing guy?
No, I didn't mean to like touch you when I said right wing guy.
There's a.
But you do have like a sympathetic thing you were saying about the right, which was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I just think like, so many people on my side of the political fence are so stupid, and like
on both sides.
On both sides,
yeah.
And it's like everybody's being stupid. To end this, one of us has to not be stupid.
Right.
And one of us has to like grin and bear it and go, okay, well, you want this, and like there's certain levels of people going, well, these people are just idiots. It's like, if you didn't say that,
right,
maybe you could get through to them. And if you worked your ass off trying to find like that 0.05% that you kind of agreed, that's the only way the real change is going to happen. I mean, I was reading this. There's a lot of police brutality going on with the NYPD these days.
But do you believe that could happen if you were talking to, say, Ted Nugent?
No. So it is on me. Right. It's like, and it's like I was talking to this guy who was like, the NYPD are criminals and they're blah, blah, blah. And it's like, they're basically dudes with jobs. And I essentially agree with you.
Right.
But if you want to change this, you have to reach out to them. Uh-huh. And if you're not interested in changing it, then just yell about it and they will get more alienated.
Right.
And it's so funny because whenever I get into this argument, people start treating me like I'm a right winger. And it's like, I'm not. I agree with you on virtually everything.
Right.
Well, this brings up the whole thing about, like, can a song change the world?
No.
You didn't write this song for that, but, some people do. They write the song, like, and I'm not talking about the We Are the World moment, but maybe I am, but still, it's like, can the songs
I think
change
it can
the world?
I think it can influence just about as much as anything else, and maybe a little bit more, But I don't know if it can change the world. It definitely, like, influences the world.
This is your way of talking about what you believe in,
right,
to a point.
Right.
So there has to be at least a bit of hope that's going to connect.
It's energy.
Yeah. No, I agree with it on that level. In terms of, like, operationally making changes.
Sure.
Right.
I mean, that stuff tends to be a lot more boring than songs. Like, filibusters, we need to end them through legislation.
I want to make this record with you. This is the record we need to make. One of us needs to dress up as Abe Lincoln, the other is George Washington.
I'll do it now.
Yeah, we're in Electric Ladyland. It's perfect.
We're on 8th Street, man. There's a costume shop a block away. Let's get it done, man.
This is the next record that's going to come out.
Is this studio booked for the whole night? Because we could do this as a one-night album.
This is it right here. We got a microphone.
Man.
What's stopping us? Pick up the guitar.
This is the one we can't listen to after we make it. It's just like, let's assume it's good.
Can't wait to hear what the Wikipedia pages say about this record, the reviews that come out.
I wanted to ask you about being in a band.
Oh, okay.
And like that, first of all, like what are you coming to the band as I'm just going to like lay out my questions. Are you coming to it as a songwriter, or are you writing collaboratively? And I guess, how scary is that, and why did you make the choice to be in a
band
collaborative unit? Yeah, assuming it's collaborative.
Yeah, it is collaborative, and it just kind of happened. It's almost like a sort of, a romantic relationship where you kind of can't force these things. They just sort of like suddenly you're hanging out and it's like something's there. And I think that's what happened with the band that I just started recently. And it is collaborative. It was like, I went out there initially. I went to Montana. The band is R&DM. It's with Jeff Ament from Pearl Jam and Richard Stuverud, for those of you that don't know. But here it is right there.
Great artwork.
Yeah. I kind of really started my sort of professional career in music as a solo artist. You've kind of gone the opposite way, but like, so for me to like go in and out of being in collaborative things, I think just fuels the whole thing, because it's like you kind of get sick of yourself after a while. And so like with Random or R&DM, like, Jeff's doing the artwork and a lot of the visual ideas are his, and it's like, for me to turn all that stuff over to somebody else who's creatively sound is like a relief and liberating. And I control so much of my own thing that I don't really feel like, oh, I need to control all these aspects. I kind of have that elsewhere. So
whenever I collaborate with producers and with, whenever I have like I hire a sideman, I'm always like very careful to coax out what the best is that he or she really brings to it.
Yeah.
But like the idea of not being the arbiter at the end of the day is like terrifying.
And do you think that you'll ever go back to that?
Honestly, you are kind of making me think about it.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's if you find the right thing, like it all, that's huge. It's like, again, to like use the relationship analogy, you could get a bad girlfriend. And then you might think, I better never be in a relationship again. But you have a great relationship now.
Right.
It's like sort of like that.
Well, I was in a band for 8 years with people that literally hated me.
And also, you got to remember, youth plays into that.
Right.
You were young. And it was a different time and stuff.
Well, the weird thing about Sullivan was I was young, but they weren't young.
Right.
I was 23. They were all in their 30s when the band started. It was like just such a messed up situation.
Right.
But I honestly, when you put out that record, I was like, maybe it's doable. I don't know that I want to do it, but maybe it's doable.
Yeah, it's fun. It's like, especially because you're playing solo a lot, to be able to stretch out on the guitar and just like that's fun. What do you think of like I heard you talk about spirituality and stuff in regards to being music. How do you think your sort of life as an artist relates to your evolution spiritually?
It's just it is it. If you find what you're supposed to be doing,
right,
and you really are like humble about it, to be like, this is my job, this is what I'm supposed to do, and I need to be faithful to this as opposed to faithful to whatever the ego issue is. And I'm not saying like I do it perfectly, because I'm always like trying to take my will back from the song. And the song's like, dude, you're making a mistake here.
Right.
So
what do you mean by that?
Well, I'm like, no, you're a love song. You're a love. Actually, I know the story from Mason Jennings, who's got this beautiful song called "Jesus, Are You Real?" And he's not a Christian. It gives me chills to think about it. Just the song, and everybody he spoke to at a record company level was like, it could be a hit song if it was like, Jimmy, are you real? Or Sally, are you real?
That shouldn't be a thing.
I know. Well, my landlord makes it a thing.
Right.
I gotta, buy food and, shelter and clothing. So it's not like I can't. It's not like I can't
think like that.
Yeah,
a little bit.
You got to.
Well, I think some of that blends well.
Right.
Like, no, they do blend a little bit. Like, look at Andy Warhol.
Right.
Or just like, like trying to like figure out ways to make a living definitely has inspired me to be, especially somebody who's never sort of had a breakthrough moment,
right,
like, or like that just can't rest on our laurels. You and I have to like sort of duke it out. I imagine, So it's like, I think that's good for art.
Yeah, no,
to a degree. You know?
I agree. I mean, if you but I mean, for one thing, I think Bach worked for the church. Hank Williams worked for a flower company doing his radio broadcast. So there's no, and for thousands of years, our gig is a job. It's not it's only since 1980 that it's been making art should be volunteer work. It's no.
But also for a lot of years, it wasn't even taken seriously. If you were a musician for a lot of times, I mean, you were.
Then Winger changed all that.
Yeah, Winger changed all of that.
Well,
Could that go up online sometimes soon?
I gotta say, it's so interesting because I met Mark Winger.
Kip Winger.
Oh, sorry. No, you know what? I'm thinking of somebody. I'm thinking of a different thing.
It's weird that I know that.
And then you got so angry.
I did get a little
Kip
angry.
Winger.
It's Kip, dog.
Mark's a cousin from another band. He was in the Moffats.
No, it was another 80s metal band, and I was talking to this guy, and it was when I was in my 20s and much more of an indie rock snob. And you're just talking to this guy, it was wow, you really believe in what you do. You make exactly what you want to make. You are real. You are realer than I am, and he's certainly at the time. And I know people that are considered to be deep art who are really just thinking about the bottom line.
Yeah.
And I know people that are
that's true. You can be surprised by that sometimes.
The cheesiest thing that you would think
oh,
this is being made by software. The guy's really into it.
Yeah.
Crying as he writes the song. So. For real.
Yeah.
That's when you're going to bust out on a song there for a second.
Even when I dream. Sorry.
Bring a fist down.
Sorry. I was wondering if you wanted to breed. If you wanted to bring life forth on the planet, that your seed would find purchase.
Oh my Lord. Let's skip that question.
It's in your notes, honestly.
I know, but it was going to be me asking you.
You've got to come back the other
reversal.
way. No, you've got to come back. It's a two-way street.
I don't know, man. It's funny.
It is tough, though. It goes with what we were just saying about making a career and all this. And, unless you have made it big, the question of sort of breeding becomes more complicated if you're on the road all the time. And,
I think if I met a woman, or with the woman I'm with now, just all of a sudden it was oh my God, we have to make another person. Right. It has to happen.
Yeah.
Then I would do it, but just the ambition of having a kid without I think it's got to start in the relationship, as opposed to start in the desire to have a kid.
Right.
But you told me, if I may bring you into it.
Sure.
You have a kid, and you had it with this really extremely good friend of yours that you guys were we'd be really good with a kid.
Yeah, we got married first, but we figured out towards the end there that we were much better friends than we were spouses. But I've said before, if she had just come up to me at any point in that and said, I would love to have a kid with you, because at that point in my life, right that second, here's a person that I do love, whether it's working on. I love this person, and yes, let's have a kid. I want to make a baby. One of my things at that point, and was in my my mid to late 20s, and I was thinking, man, if I died tomorrow, I would never know what it's like to have been a dad.
Yeah.
Right.
And that weighed really heavily on me, and it is something. I mean, here I am, working, and it's the same but different. I mean, we're all working in art and we do it differently, but we're all workhorses on top of that. But it is a juggling thing. Half the week I'm a dad. Half the week, and I meet artists coming into the studio all the time who say, it's oh yeah, and we don't ask the question like this, but what would you rather be doing right now? It's I'd rather be home with my kid.
Right.
But this is what I do.
I kind of can't deal with that idea of if I had a kid and I was just I just want the kid. I don't want the art anymore.
I have two nephews that live a mile away from me, and they're beautiful. Max and Cyrus. They're two my favorite people on the earth.
Cyrus,
so my sister lives just a mile from me, so I'm very lucky that way because I do kind of I get to as soon as I got off the tour, I rode my skateboard over to their house, and then they were attacked me and hung out with them for a little while. And I was okay, I'm gonna go home now and sleep for 48 hours straight.
When you're a creative person, you have to be creative.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how I feel. You have to be. So even when that's there, I mean, all right. Let's quote Louis C.K. right here, because
Yeah.
Louis is the most honest person in the world when it comes to having kids.
Yes.
You know, when he talks about his girls on his show, it's I love them to death, and you know.
I wish you were never
Right.
born.
It's like, you know, when I'm not around, all I want them to be is there, and the moment they walk in the door, I can't wait till they go home. You know.
And he's like, there's some line where he looks at him and goes, "You're eating my dreams."
But it's a thing though, because you know half the
That
week.
show's genius.
Oh yeah.
I love that
Because
show.
and this is going to be one of those lines, because one of the greatest way to have kids is as a divorced couple, because half the week you get to
Right.
be the ultimate parent. You get to do everything you want to do with this kid.
Right.
And the other half the week you get to be creative in the ways you have to be, you know. So do that, guys. That's
When did you start making music?
I mean, like,
When you were a kid?
yeah. I mean, I guess like when I grew up on army bases, so I was living on West Point because my dad taught there when I decided to like I had to do this, and it was really this like kind of haunted kind of feeling of dread, like, oh my god, I only have one thing I can do, and it's gonna be absolutely impossible, and it never
the
worked.
music thing?
Yeah,
That's
I was just
surprising because you're such a good writer.
Well,
You would think like,
yeah. Well, people were always like, well, you could write for airline magazine. They would like express something, you know, like practical.
were your parents happy with your career choice? Or
No, I mean, not even a little bit. Not
Right.
even like they just did not understand at
At
all.
all, huh?
Like,
Wow. And
like
what's your mom do?
my mom is she's a guidance counselor, which is really like, I love my mom to death,
Right.
but she's really one like as the creative kid sitting in front of the guidance counselor,
Right.
not the creative kid's best guidance counselor.
Right.
Really stuff they're like, you know, you're really friendly. You could sell insurance.
Right.
Right. You know, and they just didn't get it. I mean, it's not even like there's nothing to get for them. They're like, oh, what?
Right.
He does that?
Right.
What about you?
Yeah, well, I started playing in a blues rock band called Frankie Star and Chill Factor when I was still a junior in high school, and we played like 5 nights a week in Cleveland.
wow.
In Cleveland bars. So I started, and I was making $50 a night, which is kind of like sort of better than I'm doing now. You know, like, and I mean, so I kind of like became a professional musician before I graduated high school, and there was, you know, so they kind of accepted it that way. Like my dad was always a bit like, it's kind of like lightning striking, you know,
Right.
making it in music.
Right.
But like I basically knew I wasn't going to go to college, and and graduated high school, and then I moved to Atlanta, and then they were pretty accepting. I mean, like especially after I got signed and stuff like that, then they were.
Well, yeah.
And now they're like I mean, they've always been really supportive since then, you know. And a little bit before then, but it was obviously concern when I was just like sort of wasting away in minimum wage jobs and I was concerned too. I was like, did I like, this sucks. You know, what about after you kind of got your break?
Well, the best moment with my family was I didn't because the way they yelled at me about it was just like, what are you thinking? Like,
Right.
It wasn't even like the lightning and striking wasn't even a possibility. There's like, there's no electricity on the planet. There's, you know.
Yeah.
But I waited until I was playing a really big room, and then, and that's when I allowed my mom to come to a show.
And is this kind of after sort of Soul Coffee?
Yeah, this is like 96, 97. This is like late in the game.
So you guys were kind of a big band. By then they should have been like kind of for it.
Well, they were, but I was like, you're not coming to a show until it's like the most impressive thing possible.
Yeah.
And my mom was let in by a bouncer holding a flashlight, parting the crowd. And what she said to me was, Michael, I feel just like Meryl Streep.
Wow.
And that was the most.
What a great line.
Yes, yeah.
That's a great line.
Yeah. This has been amazing.
It was awesome.
Yeah.